Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining the Paula Takacs Foundation this morning to talk about our beloved partnership and the many ways that your Levine Cancer Institute research program is growing and gaining national attention and really offering real hope to patients in our community and around the globe. I know you're all very busy, and I really appreciate your time today. So let's start out with the fact that the Paula Takacs Foundation really believes that ultimately hope does change everything, and we really live by that at the foundation. How do you, Dr. Pat and Dr. Livingston, see the Paula Takacs Foundation bringing hope to sarcoma patients, as well as the rare and complex team at Levine Cancer Institute? In other words, how does the foundation's work to create a real sarcoma community inspire and energize both patients and staff at Levine Cancer Institute?
Mike, do you want to start or you want me to go?
Oh, go ahead, Josh. I'm all ears.
So Sue, I think that you know, your comment and your focus on hope is really an important comment. You know, I mean, sarcoma is a rare and complex disease. It's an orphan disease. So people feel very isolated when they get it. It is absolutely the exception that somebody comes in with a new diagnosis of sarcoma, that they've ever even met someone else or know of someone else who has a sarcoma. You know, it's not like breast cancer where it runs in the family and your mom dealt with it and you saw how that went. You're really all by yourself. So I think that that's just a different feeling for people. And sorry, lost my picture there for a second. And what the Takacs Foundation does is it really creates a community. It creates a central place, almost a repository where people can meet and get to know each other. You know, to me, just the dessert function that we had last year when I met one of actually my partner, Dr. Niesel's patients' families, and you know, it was a tragic situation. They had lost their father, sort of really suddenly from a very aggressive sarcoma. But they were sort of lost. They had never heard of this disease. They didn't know what was going on. And all of a sudden they showed up in this room and it was people from their community, people who had experienced the same losses, the same challenges, the same triumphs. And it's really, you know, it's really a different thing that you can provide. I mean, we can try and provide great medical care, but what the Takacs Foundation provides is so much more than that.
I know I certainly felt that way when I came to the first sarcoma stomp after losing my brother. And just to be around all the other people was so empowering to me in my healing process. And so I love that fact about the foundation, in addition to the funding of the research. So speaking of research, the mission of the foundation is to fund really breakthrough research that's really not receiving funding otherwise from other avenues. So how do you think that the philanthropy makes a difference in your work, Dr. Pat and Dr. Livingston and Dr. Kim? And what are the main needs philanthropy's funding at this time around sarcoma detection and treatment?
Mike, why don't you go first?
Well, I think you know, I think we struggle because we have, you know, few options. We have a younger set of patients. The needs are great. The prognosis is poor often. I totally agree with Josh's comments regarding tightening up of the community. And I think that's been the main benefit of Paula's organization, you know, and what that's allowed us to do is, you know, move forward some of the more focused and target-oriented approaches into standard chemotherapy in a more timely manner, you know, and that's really what we need, because for a long time there'd been, you know, a plateau effect in terms of the old drugs. So moving the new drugs, which always go to the big diseases first, you know, in a more forthright and speedier manner into the sarcoma world is what I think is the most or the biggest benefit of what you can do for us.
Yeah, I will say, Sue, that the sarcoma and Dr. Livingston and Dr. Pat are on the front lines of this. They're the champions who are trying to really help patients in the clinic. You and your group are the champions of trying to bring resources to help them with this fight. Sarcoma is one of these sort of underdog type diseases. It doesn't get a lot of national attention, doesn't get a lot of national funding. There are pockets of groups and experts around, but again, it's not like breast cancer, lung cancer, colon cancer, even pancreatic cancer, which is a rare tumor, but has a lot of momentum nationally. And so I really think to help an underdog, you all have really energized this effort in this region. It has been, and again, these were here for me. It's hard to believe Levine Cancer Institute has been here 8 years and counting. But I think programmatically, what's been accomplished with your involvement directly with Levine Cancer Institute has been tremendous and continues to grow year on with each of the projects and more energy around it.
As we all know, clinical trials go through really rigorous and really lengthy approval process. So Dr. Kim, what do you have some updates for us on that you could share about Levine Cancer Institute's clinical trials and that our supporters have funded in the past and any that we could potentially fund in the future?
Yeah, so it's been really it's work, and it takes time and it takes funding, and really what's been very key in this is all three of those. Dr. Livingston has just finished enrolling all the patients into the first trial that was supported by the Paula Takacs Foundation. This was several years ago when we made the announcement that we had a trial that got approved for clinical involvement. We were really excited about that, and it's hard to believe it was probably 3 years ago when we made that announcement. You did at one of the races, etc. But we finished it. We finished enrollment this past year, and again, Dr. Livingston did the yeoman's work on that. We saw the results and submitted it to ASCO, the American Society of Clinical Oncology, which is the largest cancer meeting in the world. And unfortunately, ASCO is going to be a virtual meeting this year because of COVID. We know that medicine changes quite often. But we were really pleasantly surprised to be chosen as a poster discussion, and that means it is one of the top 12 abstracts in the category of sarcoma. So we didn't know if we would be dinged by the reviewers because it was a single center. Generally, single center abstracts are a little less, and certainly 30 patients is not a huge number, but we were pleasantly surprised. And based on the results, which we cannot share at this point, we think it's justifiable.
That's really exciting news. Congratulations to you all.
Yeah, and Mike will be giving a virtual presentation on it in a few weeks, where we're getting all the information put together, and you can see how much he loves doing Zoom and videos. So this will be perfect for him to do that. But it's important information because this is a combination of drugs that exist out there. It's just that we tested it more rigorously in patients with soft tissue sarcoma, and they're all his patients, so he can cite probably every one of them off the back of his head right now. And what a great thing for the community. I mean, this trial would not have happened in this region without the support of your foundation, Sue. And so, that's something that you should be really proud about. What's our next step? Well, we're actually not done with the study. The study has enrolled everyone, but we've actually collected blood and tissue in every one of these patients. And so further funding that we will be using is to run genomic analysis, trying to find actually what the most up-to-date or forward-thinking biomarkers are to try and truly identify why some patients benefited so much and why some did not. And that's really the secret to unlock how to give a particular patient with their particular disease a personalized treatment. So we're not done, but we are working on the manuscript. Our goal is to publish the manuscript, and once the embargo releases for ASCO, we will share this with you. We acknowledge you all on the paper presentations and the manuscripts. So you'll see acknowledgments on there, and just how important this funding is to drive this research.
Yeah, another thing to highlight, Sue, with that is, again, what Ed just said is that unfortunately this all does take time. I mean, this was 3 years from that exciting moment on the steps of the church when you and Dr. Kim, revealed this big news, to when we have just the first piece of data ready for presentation. And so I think that that's something that's sort of hard to understand sometimes. You want immediate feedback and immediate return on this investment, but it is a long-term play, and we're all in it for the long term. But we appreciate how the Takacs Foundation has been there for us for the long term.
And I also want to say, I know that Dr. Livingston is a very humble gentleman and physician, but I just need to say, Dr. Livingston, that I hear from so many patients and about how beloved you are, and we just appreciate how much you do for patients and what a champion you are for sarcoma research and the universe of all sarcomas around the country, and making a dent in the progress in sarcomas. And we just, from a family perspective and a foundation perspective, we just thank you from the bottom of our hearts. We know that you don't like to be out there. You're not a limelight guy, but everyone needs to know how much you have contributed to this unraveling the mysteries of this disease. And thank you.
I second that.
I'll add that, believe it or not, even his staff like him too. So, I keep asking him twice. I'm like, really?
He is beloved. He is beloved in every single way.
Well, I'm proud he's going to get the recognition this year with this abstract, this study, and I know he's very proud to present it. Otherwise, he would have told me, Josh, or somebody else to present it. And so we're very proud of him for that, and it's deserved. And it'll be a first authored paper published somewhere later this year. So that's again a testament to the work he's doing here, and again to the support and resources that you all have provided the sarcoma program at Levine to accomplish this type of effort.
Are there any crumbs you can throw us as far as a status update in your work on the profiling of patient tumors in osteosarcoma and synovial sarcoma?
Yeah, we have so many crumbs. It's actually more like Thanksgiving stuffing right now, Sue. So, the team is very much still carrying on work. This COVID pandemic has clearly changed entirely healthcare. I mean, we have sent home all our non-essentials from the hospital. That includes our laboratory staff, et cetera. However, people can still do work at home, believe it or not, and we're doing that. So we do have multiple projects going on, as you know, with liposarcoma, finishing that up. Synovial sarcoma, we have gotten all the tissue, and we are now we've done a first step analysis on those, and we're trying to find our second step analysis of molecular analysis, as well as we've finished up the database to completely clinically annotate all these patients over the last 10 years. And this is, all the patients that Josh and Dr. Niesel have treated over the years, including Dr. Livingston. And then we have so many of the osteosarcoma samples. We're now trying to assess them for viability. What's different about bone is that bone doesn't get preserved as well as most other soft tissues. And so because there's calcification, many times you cannot get good biomarker data to run analyses on. So the first thing we do is we have to look at the samples and make sure there's enough DNA in there that we can use appropriately. And that's the challenge with bone, but it's routine stuff. So we, and Will Ahrens is a phenomenal pathologist. And so he's done really a great job of procuring a lot of these samples. And right now we're just trying to whittle down the list to make sure and see how many we have. It will be in the range of hundreds, which would be our largest set ever and biggest undertaking because of all the additional steps we have to do to prepare that tissue, but it's underway. And then, of course, we have another clinical trial that we are trying to get approved. It is currently under review at a pharmaceutical company right now, so we're awaiting their decision on that, but that will be the next trial. We are hopeful, fingers crossed, that the Paula Takacs Foundation will support for the Charlotte region. And so you can see, just as how Dr. Pat pointed out earlier, how this cyclical sort of aspect with trials works. We think of an idea, we use some of the other data, we apply it to the next design, and we got to try and get a company to bite on it, to give us the drugs. Then we open it, run it, takes a couple years to put patients on, and then we report the results. And that's the type of cycling you want to see occurring on a regular basis.
Absolutely.
One other maybe crumb or exciting piece for all of us is that over the last year, we've seen Colin Anderson and Megan Jagoski really sort of take off in terms of leading a lot of our current and future research efforts, writing up trials, and they've been intimately involved with what Dr. Kim's submitted. So it's really fun for all of us to have some true young blood in the system and in the pipeline, kind of keeping that pipeline rolling.
You're still young, Josh. Mike's not that young. You're young. I'm not that young either. I just look young. So
Good skin. Every research program has vision, both for the near term and for the long haul. Could you describe for us what you feel is the vision for Levine Cancer Institute's Sarcoma Research program in terms of the type of sarcomas and the type of research that are your foci?
Why don't we go Josh and then Mike, and then I'll finish that up. So Josh?
Yeah, I think that we want to remain, focused on the highest yield and the highest volume tumors. I think one of the things that we've learned looking at sarcomas over time is that if you just study sarcoma as a whole, you get a very heterogeneous group of tumors that don't necessarily behave the same way. So that's why we've really focused on liposarcoma, on synovial sarcoma, on osteosarcoma, because you get a little less tumor heterogeneity if you kind of stick within one group. We still see that heterogeneity there, even within a single group, because of the natural history of sarcomas and how they grow and how they change over time. But I think that's really been important to us, is trying to pick out individual tumors that we have a high enough volume of to really sort of assess how that works. So I think from a how do we pick what we're going to look at, that's sort of what's going to continue to drive us in trying to make meaningful impact. Mike?
Well, I don't know that I'm a global vision type of person, but what I do think is that as long as we can continue to focus on individual patient care and not only doing the right thing for patients, but realizing that most of the advances in medicine come from actually caring for patients at the bedside and having insights given from those folks directly, rather than sort of setting goals. You need goals, you need leaders. You need, we need to do X, Y, Z, by a certain date. But what you really need is people who, look at patients and see them outside of the context of a clinical trial, and having and allowing them to provide insights into really what makes cancer go. So that's what I try to focus on every day. And I hope some of the younger guys coming on down the line, I hope that they will focus on that too.
And I think, Sue, the way we always think about clinical trials, and whether this was when I was at MD Anderson or it's now, is that, yeah, we can read about the science. We can read what comes out of the laboratories, and that's not difficult. A computer helps you do that. You can listen to scientific discussions, but really an equally important part of that is sitting around a table with people who are treating these folks and picking their brain, saying, what do you see? What works? What doesn't work? What can we make that's different? And so I think they've both really encapsulated where the vision is. The vision is that, number one, we want to make things better for patients who are fighting this disease. And whether that's quality of life with therapies or through different treatments, or whether that's with how we do a surgical case, or whether we give radiation or what, we want to make them feel better. And this is all for the betterment of the patient. B is that we want to introduce, science into our application of these. And whether that is using quality science, or whether that's using drug therapeutic science, or what have you, and test those things. We all thought that the combination of doxorubicin and pembrolizumab might be a good one, but didn't really know. It's just one person's opinion versus another person's opinion, and some of the single agent pembrolizumab worked okay. And and Dr. Livingston, being an expert in this area, he runs out of options pretty quickly and has to sort of just think anecdotally, what can I use here? What can I use there? And that's why the importance of structure and testing it will help. And what would be really great is if this combination was looked upon very favorably, maybe it will lead to a larger study done by multiple centers. Who knows? But we've got it out there at least now to share with the world, and they can either criticize us or say they really like it. But that's why you share ideas on a forum. And so we want to take everyone's opinions and really apply it to the clinic and make sure that we're doing our best for these patients.
And I think too, that's such an important point, Dr. Kim, that the excellent research that's occurring in Charlotte, North Carolina is not only going to benefit patients in our community, but really that knowledge is spread throughout the sarcoma experts in the entire country. And so the work that's being done here will benefit the world, and things don't happen in a vacuum, and they don't stay in a vacuum. And I think that's a really solid point.
Yeah, the discussant for Dr. Livingston abstract this year is an expert from Memorial Sloan Kettering. So hopefully they'll say positive things, but we don't know. That's why they're a discussant.
Probably
so,
not, Ed.
Stop it. It's not personal, Mike. Remember, it doesn't matter what they think of you. But the data is good. So the data is solid. And so even if they say, well, we're not sure, it's a small study, that's an acknowledgement of, yeah, this actually is decent data for what we have. And so the fact that, you now have someone from Memorial Sloan Kettering discussing this data at an international high profile meeting, wow.
Well, I don't want to take too much more of your time, but speaking of wow, as we all know, we're not going to be stomping on the pavement together tomorrow. And we will certainly miss being with all of you and all of the beautiful families and the incredible staff of Levine Cancer Institute and Levine Children's Hospital. We'll miss that terribly. But and we'll miss watching Dr. Livingston win his age category, as he always does. and Dr. Pat with his family, who started the Sarcoma Stomp when they were in strollers, and Dr. Kim's children through Charlotte Latin participating through what was Hawks for Hope, and this year I believe it was Hawks Strong. So we will definitely miss all that, but pressure's on because you need to be stomping tomorrow anyway. And I was just curious how you and your families might be stomping tomorrow in honor of the Sarcoma Stomp.
We'll be out tomorrow morning. We're gonna do a family run. We kind of have a loop in mind where I can drop my 8-year-old off after about a 2K. That's about all she needs. And then the other two and I will do the full 5K. Thing I'm most disappointed about is that Dr. Livingston and I had a bet of who was going to win. So it's a little disappointing that we don't have, I kind of stopped training since the race got canceled, since I knew I didn't have to do this publicly, but we'll just push it off to next year, I guess.
There must be some sort of video game you two can play virtually that has running involved, and maybe that's the way to do it, huh? Record that on Zoom.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all for your time today and your insight. And again, we thank you so much for your dedicated partnership with us in Sarcoma Research. And we look forward to stomping with you virtually on Saturday and doing, there you go. He's got his shirt on.
That was the t-shirt for this year.
We look forward to stomping with you apart but together tomorrow and doing great things with you in sarcoma research for patients in our community and around the globe. Thank you all so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sue.
Thanks for everything you do, Sue. You are such an important cog in this entire enterprise. And I think Paula is looking down at you, very proud at what you've accomplished. And this partnership has certainly been one that we value very highly.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.